You know, when we think about historical figures, it's pretty easy to fill in the gaps with stories and myths. But what if we didn't? What if we built a life story using only what was left behind? Things like letters, diaries, and official records. Well, that's exactly what we're going to do today. We're going to piece together the documented life of Christian A. Fleetwood, based entirely on what's in the archives. So here he is. This is Christian A. Fleetwood. The story we're about to explore comes from a collection of papers. And really, the most fascinating part isn't just what the documents tell us, it's also what they don't. That's the real puzzle we're tackling here. So it really begs the question, right? Who was this man? And to answer that, we're making a promise. No guessing. None. We're sticking strictly to the evidence, to what was actually written down and preserved. Let's see what the historical record really has to say. Okay, so our journey into the archives begins in Baltimore, Maryland, in the years leading up to the Civil War. This is where the paper trail for Christian Fleetwood starts. And right away, the records give us some solid, foundational facts. He was born on July 21st, 1840. His parents, Charles and Anna Marie Fleetwood, were free persons of color. Now, you have to understand, this was a huge deal back then. That status opened doors that were closed to so many. He got his early education in the household of a sugar merchant, and then he went to college. He graduated in 1860 from Ashmun Institute, which we know today as Lincoln University, one of the very first colleges for African Americans. But get this, the records show that in 1860, the same year he graduated, he co-founded a newspaper, the Lyceum Observer. Think about that. At just 20 years old, he's already a community leader. This is so important because it proves he was educated, literate, and deeply involved in public life before the war even started. He was already a remarkable individual. All right, now the archives bring us to what is by far the most detailed part of his life story, his time as a soldier in the Union Army during the Civil War. And military records, they're super precise. We see he enlists in August 1863. And boom, that same month, he's promoted to sergeant major. Why so fast? His education. And at the time, that was the absolute highest rank an African-American soldier could achieve. His path from there would take him straight into the heat of battle at a place called Chaffin's Farm, and ultimately to earning the Medal of Honor. But, you know, the official records only tell one side of the story. What's absolutely fascinating is what his personal diary reveals about the day-to-day. The reality of war wasn't all charging into battle. A lot of the time, his regiment was doing construction, digging trenches, just standing guard. He actually writes about being bored. He mentions disease and just having nothing to do. It's such a powerful human contrast to the way we usually imagine a soldier's life. And then, there's one day. One single day that the archives point to that stands out above everything else. September 29th, 1864. This is it. This is his diary entry for that day. It's so short, but it says everything. Charged and got used up. Saved colors. That's it. No flowery language, no embellishment. Just the raw, brutal facts of what happened. It's incredible. And look, here's the actual page from his diary. This isn't a transcript, this is the real thing. Seeing his handwriting right there, it just makes it all so real, so immediate. This is what we're talking about. This is the power of digging into the archives. Okay, so now let's compare Fleetwood's own words, saved colors, with the official Medal of Honor citation. The Army's version is much more formal, right? He sees the colors after 2 color bearers have been shot down and bore them nobly through the fight. It's fascinating, isn't it? Both are telling the truth, but one is a personal, in-the-moment account, and the other is for public memory, 2 sides of the same heroic coin. And the effect of what he did that day was immediate. We have the documents. Right after the battle, every single one of his white officers got together and signed a petition. They sent it straight to the Secretary of War, recommending that Christian Fleetwood be promoted to an officer. And then, the record shows us what happened next. The request was denied. Flat out. The archives don't give us a why, they just give us the what. So despite this incredible act of bravery, despite the unanimous support of every officer he served with, Christian Fleetwood remained a sergeant major. So you might be wondering, what happens to a war hero after the war is over? Well, for Christian Fleetwood, the archives show us his life of service and leadership was really just getting started. The setting just shifts to Washington, D.C. And the paper trail from this period is just, wow. He's a bookkeeper at the Freedmen's Bank. He's a clerk for the U.S. War Department. But that military drive, it never left him. He helps organize the Washington Cadet Corps, eventually becoming its captain. Then he becomes a major and commander in the DC National Guard. He's the first instructor for the Colored High School Cadet Corps. And on top of all that, he's the choir master for several DC churches. The man was, without a doubt, a pillar of his community. But then, the archives show us another barrier. In 1892, a promotion to commanding officer of his unit came up, and he was passed over. The records note that right after that, he resigned from the DC National Guard. That was the end of his formal military career. So that brings us to the final chapter. What do the archives tell us about the end of his life? Well, the documents give us a few key points. In 1891, he applies for a pension, and the application reveals something personal. He was suffering from severe hearing loss that he got during the war. He clearly remained a respected figure in DC society. The record of his death in 1914 notes that it was sudden from heart failure. He was 74. And at his burial, the DC National Guard served as an escort, which really tells you something about the respect he held until the very end. But this is where we have to talk about what isn't in the archives. There's this huge gap, about 20 years between when he resigned from the Guard and his death. The records are pretty much silent. Historians call this an archival silence. And because we're sticking to the evidence, we just have to acknowledge that gap. We can't fill it in with stories or guesses. And so in the end, we're left with the documents, the stories they tell, the gaps they leave, and this, the Medal of Honor. It's the most solid, tangible piece of his legacy, preserved in the Smithsonian, a symbol of what he did on one single day in 1864, recognized by the entire nation. And that brings us right back to our big question. We've walked through the documents, the official facts, the personal diary, the public honors, and even the empty spaces in between. So I'll leave you with this to think about. What does a life built only from what was written down truly show us about a person and about history itself?